I'm Barbara Peters. Welcome to this episode of the Criminal Calendar. We have with us a writer who is kind of an international crime writer, all rolled into one, Nicholas Griffin. Hi, Nicholas.
Hi there.
If I have this right, you have a British father, an American mother, a Venezuelan wife, a child who's American, I guess,
Yeah.
and the dog.
And a dog from New Jersey.
Dog from New Jersey.
Yeah, that completes the crew now.
How many languages do you all speak among you?
At the moment, the rule is Spanish inside the house and English out of the house. But I think my son's only a matter of months, but I think he may speak as much Spanish as I do already. So it's going to be hard keeping up with him when he really starts to roll.
You know, I just took my eye off you for like a couple of years, and look what you got up to. It's kind of unnerving.
Life started moving very quickly. But,
well, last time I saw you it must have been in the year 2000 when you published House of Light and Shadow.
Yeah.
And you were living in New York, if I recall, as a carefree bachelor.
Those were the days, yeah.
And I was living some of the time around the corner in our apartment, and you invited me to your favorite New York morning coffee spot.
That's right, which is now, I think there was only one of them in 2000. I think you'll find there are about 15 or 16 now. So
Le Pain Quotidien?
That's changed as well, yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Well, I still go to the one just above Bloomingdale's, right? On Madison?
On
or
Lexington.
3rd, on Lexington.
Yeah.
Love it, so I've always been grateful to you. But if I remember right, as you and I were sitting there crunching up pastries and French coffee and all the rest of it, you didn't have any of this in mind. I mean, you weren't discussing family.
No. Well, back then, I guess I was still just in my 20s, so maybe things changed when I flipped into the 30s. But really, this has all happened to me in the last 2-3 years. So.
And if I also remember right, either then or subsequently, there was some tragic tale of a book that you were working on. Do I not recall this correctly?
That's right.
You actually lost a book.
I was in Italy writing a book about Italy, and I was at the end of my trip. I think I just spent 3 months, and I went to stay with a lady I knew there who was terribly sweet, and brought me a jug of water one day when I happened to have my computer out and all my backup disks on the table right by the computer, and she tripped coming into the room and landed the jug squarely on the table, and I lost I think about 90% of everything I'd done. But in the end, I do, you know, I'm not just saying this, I really think it was a blessing, because you had to go over, and sooner or later you have to start rewriting in any novel you're ever going to write. So talk about a large rewrite, that was the whole thing. But it probably made it a stronger book in the end.
You know, that's the kind of thing you used to hear about when writers were doing manuscripts in pencil and leaving them on trains and other terrible things.
Yeah.
But I have so seldom encountered somebody in this day and age who's lost, you know, not only the computer, but all the disks and everything else.
It was a rare set of circumstances.
Well, it really was. But I think the reason I asked the question was did you have enough of it in your head that you were able to recreate it, or was it a project you were just going to abandon?
Well, what I always do, my strategy of working, I'm sure everyone has slightly different. I do still to this day keep a lot of handwritten notes, but those nothing creative, but just all the notes behind what I then create. So I felt like I still had my structure somewhere down there in the paper, and at least I had things to refer back to, even if they were a bit smudged and inky. But no, it was a good process in the end.
So there was kind of a long delay, but what book resulted from all this?
That was a book called The Masquerade, which was about Italy in the 18th century, and a story set around the Grand Tour, which seems like an ordinary Grand Tour where English gentlemen would be sent off for a prolonged education on the continent, 2 to 3 years. And in this case, things aren't quite what they seem, and this supposedly innocent educational trip is a more devious plot involving different countries, different kings, and Machiavellian schemes behind the thrones.
You really like that. I really think of your books as suspense stories. You know, they're certainly not detective or classical mysteries in any way. I'm not sure you even intend them to be part of the crime genre at all.
No, I never started off thinking of myself as a crime writer, but you know, I think I'm indefensible. If I was if I was being tried, I think I'd be very easily. It would be an easy case for the prosecution. Every novel or even my piece of nonfiction I did all springboard one way or another off crime. I don't know what that says about me if I'm not doing it deliberately.
Well, you know, the stuff of fiction really is conflict, and so if the kind of conflict your mind fastens upon tends to be of a criminal nature,
Yeah.
or you know, and also your writing, or a lot of your writing has been historical. I mean, people die and things happen.
Things happen. Yeah, I always think of my books above all things as stories about self-deceit. I think, and for me, it's characters who sort of find themselves with temptations and just sort of kid themselves into thinking that things are the right things to do when perhaps they do know better, and then the consequences that come to catch up with them. And in some of my stories, they sort of are squirmy and wily enough to escape the consequences, and in some they don't. But either way, crime comes into the picture.
Requiem Shark. I don't know why I want to call it Requiem for a Shark. Requiem Shark, that was your first published book?
That was my first book, yeah.
Tell us about the piracy story, because I was really entranced. I have never read it because it's been out of print in the time that I have known you, but I love the idea that it was your own ancestral story.
Actually, before I wrote that book, I wrote a book about Arizona.
You did?
Yeah, it was my practice book, so to speak. It was good enough to get me an agent, but it never got published. But I was around here for a bit of research back in probably 96, 97, around Lake Havasu region and around there.
Was that because of the bridge?
My uncle was the man who sold the bridge. No, he's a New Yorker, and he was in London, and he was the man who put the deal together to
Sorry, I've
sell
always
the
been
bridge.
classical. Sorry about New Yorkers says you want to buy a bridge because it's always about the Brooklyn Bridge.
There you go. My New York side of my family. You know, that's the man.
So he actually was part of
He was the
deal
one
there.
who was at a dinner in London with the mayor of London, and they were talking about how they were going to have to tear down the bridge, and my uncle said, well, what if I can find you someone to buy it? And that's how it all started. So
I love it. So you came over here with a story kind of tied to that?
roughly tied to it, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately it never quite made it to life. It's sitting at the bottom of a large drawer at home, and maybe one day I'll go back and rework it. It was one of those stories where everyone loves the first half of the book, and every editor had a different idea of what I should do with the second half. So I think in the end what I did was I put it aside and did something entirely different. In this case, well, still about my family, of course. I started researching a book about 18th century piracy, which really couldn't be
Well, it still has a nautical theme. I don't know that it's wildly
bridges
different.
in there. Yeah.
I mean, if you go up and down the Thames, as I have done umpteen times, I mean, there's actually is it gibbet or gibbet? I've never been able to pronounce this right.
I'm half American, half English, so I say both and get away with it.
Okay, there's a noose. There's a whole hangman's deal where, in fact, pirates were hung alongside the Thames.
That's right, and the tide would come up and cover the bodies, and then go down again to teach the rest of the world a lesson of what happened to pirates, until they were sort of skeletons that dropped through the bars.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's the name of the oldest pub along the river there? It's on the north bank, and it's near the power station that has been converted to the fabulous
Battersea Power
restaurant.
Station.
No, it's not the
Not the
Battersea. There's another power station. It's become an extremely posh restaurant. It's one of my favorite places to eat because they've taken like the old cable spools and turned them into dining tables.
I haven't been there yet.
But the pub is across the way, and when you go in, it's got wavy floors and wavy glass and all, but it's famous in part because one of the notorious pirates sailed out of it.
I don't know that
This is all I know about piracy.
I don't know that story.
Yeah, but I can see that tying the bridge in the river and pirates.